Can you still hear me okay?
Got you perfectly.
Oh, great. Okay. Live on Facebook. Okay. I don't see it, but I'm sure if I refresh the page.
It's showing it on my end anyway. So
Great. Okay. Welcome to everybody for the first of season 3 of my Coffee and Connect series. I'm Sue Landsberg, founder of Inner Happy, and I am very, very excited to introduce you guys to my wonderful guest this evening, Diarmaid Mulcahy. And as we are going to explore this evening, what has really caught my eye with Diarmaid is how we tend to limit ourselves. We tend to box ourselves into categories and give ourselves labels, thus limiting the possibilities that are out there for us and limiting our potential as humans. And I know Diarmaid has so much to share with us, and he is one person who has absolutely not limited himself in any way to any label, as he's involved in for everything from politics, social, economic, political, and do I say that? And environmental issues over the years. So Diarmaid, you're very welcome, and I'm so pleased and grateful that you can join me this evening.
And it's great to be on, Sue. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share a few ideas, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. So we have so much. First of all, tell us a bit about you. And I know you're here, a man of many talents, but this evening we're very interested in looking at your energy healing and how that all began. And first of all, how did this all come about for you? If you want to take the hot seat there and tell us.
Take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. I'm originally from West Kerry. I was born into a kind of a slightly unusual household in that my parents were teachers, but they returned from West Africa, having been there for a number of years teaching in schools in West Africa. They came back to Ireland because my elder brother and sister were getting to school going age. And they actually set up a school in our home community down in West Kerry. And a couple of years later, they actually brought the school into our family home.
Okay. So there was no escaping school then?
There wasn't, but it's interesting because the place we live in Kerry is an absolutely fabulous location. And the house is right beside the sea. You've got mountains right behind it. So you've got sort of the sky, you've got the sea, you've got mountains, and there's constant ebb and flow. So there's constant change going on, right? So I grew up seeing the tide going in and out every day. We had a secondary school in our family home, which expanded over time. And we would then move school furniture into bedrooms, and we would move. So there was constant change going on, right? So I grew up with that. So the norm for me is constant change. Now, I went to college in University College Cork. I did science. I did zoology, which is the science of life and animals, particularly. I'm particularly interested in the marine. So marine mammals in particular absolutely fascinate me. Having finished in UCC, I went off and worked in offshore islands, working in fish farming and things like that. And fast forward a number of years, I ended up getting married. I have 3 kids. I'm also separated. I have a new partner. And in the middle of all of that, I developed a number of health challenges.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, I'm not sure if this is visible, but I broke my nose. I actually have a broken nose when I was 7.
Right.
And it actually didn't all come to light as to the impact of a broken nose until I was in my mid to late 30s.
Oh, wow.
And at that stage, I had very severe back trouble. So people kind of look at me today and say, how could you possibly have had back trouble? I was bent over like that for a number of years. So I discovered through a series of coincidences, which of course they weren't, that I wasn't going to go down the mainstream medical route in terms of having my back challenges dealt with, even though I was recommended for back surgery with the possibility of being in a wheelchair and all sorts of other interesting things. But something in me said no, the risks versus the potential improvement. The risk I felt was too high. So I remember coming back from a meeting with a senior medic neurosurgeon in Dublin, and having been told, look, there was about a 70-30% chance of success. I remember going home, having a little think about it, but I'd said to him, look, I don't like the odds. So I went home and I said, no, look, tell you what, I won't call, don't call me, I'll call you. And I never actually went back to continue that discussion. A couple of days later, a good friend of mine rang me and knew I was in trouble and asked me if I'd ever heard of chiropractic. So my first answer was no. What is chiropractic?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer I got was, do you trust me, Diarmaid? So this is a guy called Elias Asaf. He's a very dear friend of mine. I said, Ellie, of course I trust you. Well, just come with me to this guy and I guarantee you something will benefit you. So we agreed to go along. We set up an appointment and I found myself in the treatment rooms of a chiropractor who was based outside of Oranmore, a guy called Cleo Bloodworth. He was known as Dr. B. That's what he was known as. Dr. B was in his mid-70s when I met him. And I can remember going in, he did an assessment. He says, yes, I can definitely help you, but I need you to commit to a number of things. One, you're going to get regular exercise. Two, you're going to drink lots of water. Three, you will take no more painkillers, no more anti-inflammatories, no more medication. Now, I was eating painkillers and anti-inflammatories at the time. I was absolutely eating them, and they were destroying my gut, actually, which is interesting. This will come into something else a little later. And I needed to make a significant financial commitment. And he says, I'll give you 5 minutes, and he left the room. So I'm lying there in huge pain, saying to myself, well, what option do I have? So he came back in, he says, what do you want to do? I says, let's do it. And Dr. B took his index finger, he put a little glove over it, little rubber glove. He asked me to open my mouth, and he put his finger into my mouth and he actually rotated it across the roof of my mouth. What I now know as a craniosacral change.
Okay.
And it was like someone turned off pain, just like that. It was like someone pressed a switch. And now, if you remember, I was like this.
Yes. I
had barely been able to get into the room. Someone turned off the pain switch. And all he done was this craniosacral correction, across the roof of my mouth. And I sat up. And I'm kind of going, where's the pain gone? And Dr. B said, well, Diarmaid, you're 39 years of age. It is taking you 39 years to get to where you are now. I've carried out one correction. When I carry out this correction for people, lots of people go and they chop down trees and they cut the lawn and they go build a wall or they climb a mountain. He said, I wouldn't recommend that. This is going to take a bit of work because you've taken 39 years to get what I had was what's called triple scoliosis. My back had 3 twists in it. He said I was the worst case of scoliosis he had ever seen. Yet I experienced what was possible just by somebody pushing the roof of my mouth for about 10 seconds. And someone switched off. It was like a pain switch going off. It was incredible. So I spent the following number of months working with Dr. B, getting things unwound. This was the start of it. And I learned an awful lot about physiology. Again, I started life as a scientist. I studied science in college. So I learned an awful lot more about body dynamics and stuff like that. And then because of all the painkillers and anti-inflammatories I've been taking, my gut was in a very poor state. So I started to look at diet and the effect that diet has on my gut. And then I started to feel, as my body started to heal itself, which is what was happening, I ran into somebody one day and they asked me if I would be interested in an energy healing. And they recommended a particular lady to me, a lady called Nikki Cutler. So I said, well, what's Reiki? She's a Reiki master. So the person who recommended that says, I can't really describe it to you, but would you be open to experiencing it. So I said, look, I've tried a number of things at this stage. So I went along for a Reiki session with Nikki. And to say it was an eye-opener would be a major understatement. So having had an hour's energy healing with Nikki, where I broke down and cried and all sorts of other things, I left Nikki's treatment room, and it was like the lights had come on in the world. Every color I saw seemed to be brighter, clearer. I saw things more clearly. My head felt clear. My entire body felt energized. So I had a couple of sessions with Nikki, and then Nikki said, would I be interested in learning some of the techniques? So
did this surprise you, Diarmaid? Did you expect any of this, or were you quite taken aback by how it made you feel and that shift in energy, or were you just, it feels good, I'll go with it?
It's a bit like the sensation of having been in pain for a huge length of time, or experiencing pain for a huge length of time because of certain things that needed to be corrected physically in my body, and also emotionally, interestingly enough. But to have the sensation of a person, as I said earlier, putting a finger in my mouth and next thing, turn off a switch, and pain goes. It doesn't go immediately on all, but it starts that process. So having had that experience, and then realizing that changing diet could also do amazing things in my body, and then the experience of someone switching on a light switch from a healing session or an energy healing session was a surprise. I suppose I kind of got used to the possibilities of what was going on.
Okay.
So when Nikki said, would I be interested in learning some of the techniques, I said, where do I sign?
Yeah, I know.
So what I did then is I studied with Nikki. I did Reiki 1. Sorry, my apologies. Nikki, I did Reiki 3 with. I did my master's with Nikki. It was actually Anne McGarry is the lady who I started treatments with. Apologies. So I completed a Reiki mastership over a period of about 4 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did Reiki up to level 3 in South Africa, which really, again, opened up my whole world as well. So it's fascinating to hear somebody else's experience with it. So yeah, okay, go on. Very interesting.
So in terms of any other learnings, then I've studied 6 other complementary health therapies, including using essential oils. I work with access bars, which are a number of points on the head, and one can actually dissipate energy touching into those areas. I work with a therapy called polarity conscious or heartfulness polarity, which is based on our meditation, actually, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. I use aroma touch, which is a technique using massage and oils. And I've studied hidden mind. I've studied illuminated heart. I am certified in body balance therapies, which is about the body actually becoming itself in terms of its movement, in terms of its posture, in terms of how we sit, how we stand, how we breathe, how we bend over. So I've done lots of different things in the kind of complementary healing space.
Can you tell us a little about each of those? And what is there certain things that one would go to each relevant healing modality for? Or I know when you do healing, it encompasses probably all, and you can tell what that person needs. But if a person doesn't know what the bars are about, or the others that you mentioned there, can you just, have you time to explain a little about each?
I'll do it very briefly, if that's okay.
I know it's complex, but
we could spend a long time talking about all the different therapies.
Yeah.
So Reiki is hands-off energy healing using hands, and for me, it's about picking up heat or cold within a person's auric field or energy body, and then working with those blocks, removing them, opening up the energy around them, things like that. And lots of things are possible in that. I've had some amazing experiences in terms of helping people, in terms of how the body responds when energy moves. And some of it's actually quite phenomenal. The sort of contortions that a body will go into as energy leaves. And in my experience, energy actually goes in spirals. And when it moves in a body, if you think about energy spiraling, the body will actually react to that. And it's actually fascinating. And really humbling actually to be able to participate and help people release energy out of their bodies. And it's quite unusual what can happen, but it's hugely beneficial and hugely healing for people when that happens. There's usually an energy or an emotional trigger happens at the same time, so they get an emotional release. There can often be tears and so on. But again, it's all good. It's all good. Something else I do is I bring energy back to where it lives. We all have an energy body, and if our energy body is where it lives, because it has a particular area, some people's energy body is a little wider because they've done more energy work themselves than others. But as a general rule, it's about 6 inches from our bodies, and it covers us in our entirety. Where if one has a trauma or a physical accident, this energy can get displaced. And it's interesting what occurs or what can occur in a person's body when energy has been displaced. So I've had people come to me with problems with their eyesight, not able to turn their necks, problems with shoulders, problems with postures, problems with their lower backs. And inevitably, when we get to talk about what's happened in their history and when I check into their energies, it often transpires that they've had a physical accident. Someone has fallen off a horse, they've been involved in a car crash, they got a belt in the head from something, they fell and they banged their head on the ground. And what will inevitably happen is energy then gets displaced. And when energy is displaced, the body then isn't able to act to its optimum. Whereas if we bring the energy home, which is where it lives, then all sorts of things are possible. Just one little example. I got a phone call one day asking me, was I the guy who was able to help people with vertigo? And I said, well, let's see, did someone tell you that I had helped them with vertigo? And it turned out that yes, they had had a phone call from somebody who knew somebody who had vertigo, and in a healing session, the vertigo went. Now, I wasn't aware of this, I heard this afterwards. So a lady appeared at my clinic wearing dark glasses, and we're on the first floor of a building, so she had difficulty coming up the stairs, and she was wearing black glasses. So it turns out she'd been involved in quite a severe car accident and had been bounced around the place. So her energy was literally all over the place. So we brought the energy home, and she literally danced out of the room when we finished. And yes, that was vertigo, and vertigo changed, but it was simply energy needed to come home.
Yeah.
I was able to help her bring the energy home. So, access bars, there are a number of points in the head. So we just touch those points. There's a particular sequence that one goes through, and it usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour. And during that process, again, lots of energy gets dissipated from the body. It's just another way of touching into energy. I mentioned body balancing. That's really about people learning how the muscles of the body and the joints of the body, our backs, our necks, our jaw muscles, our jaw hinges, if you want, how they all work, and being able to, again, helping people who've had some form of an injury or who maybe have lost the sense of their body's tone and the way the body operates, and bringing people back to that. So after my back traumas myself, I trained in this area because it was something that I wanted to be able to relearn, because a lot of my body had actually got quite troublesome for me. So I learned how to sit, how to stand, how to hold myself, how to breathe, different exercises. Again, it's just the way the body is intended to work, but it isn't something that we're taught.
No.
So how do we stretch? How do we stand? How do we sit? How do we maintain our posture and all of those things? When we're standing, how do we hold our posture? And just a little thing, probably most people wouldn't realize, if you go 10-pin bowling, the bowling ball that you use, our head is approximately the same weight as a bowling ball. So if you think about that weight on your neck all day, every day, and what happens then if that's slightly off? So imagine having a bowling ball, which is a heavy item, but imagine that on the top of your neck, but that's slightly off. What stress and strain that puts on parts of your body. Heartfulness polarity is a hands-on energetic process. There are 12 different processes that we do. We start with right and then we go to left. And again, we go through a process, but it's hands-on. It's like touching the shoulder and touching the ankle at the same time. So what we're doing is we're actually completing energy circuits. And as those energy circuits are completed, energy moves through the body. If there's negative energy that needs to leave, it does. The body gets energized. Again, that can be quite phenomenal in terms of the results that come from that. The illuminated heart is actually a very interesting technique, which involves, I'm going to get slightly technical, it's the toroidal fields of the heart. And if we actually listen to our bodies and we tune into our energy centers, now there's a term called chakras. We have 7 main chakras in our body. And the one in the middle, because we have 3 above and we have 3 below, the one in the middle is actually the heart chakra. So one is familiar with the movement of energy when the heart chakra is actually spinning. That's actually the toroidal field of the heart, which actually operates like this. It's 2 spinning things that happen at the same time. So I've studied that, and that allows me to actually access heart energy and to activate heart energy. Also done work with illuminated heart, which is a different, illuminated heart. Tom Griffin's work, which is, I've lost the name of the other one.
Yeah.
He taps into subconscious, and then we work with subconscious mind and the energy of subconscious mind. And we also use keys, which come about by using a pendulum.
Pendulum, yeah.
Are there other ways of actually accessing or tapping into that energy as well? I use a yes/no question, which gives me a sense of hairs lifting in the back of my neck to answer me, which again is quite interesting. But again, it allows me to work with different energies.
Yeah.
So that's some of the examples.
Can I ask you, being from a scientific background, did you find, because science is very much based on fact, research and fact, ground in evidence. Now, I also, as I've told you, I deal with energy healing, but it can be very difficult, as far as I have experienced, for people who are from that scientific background to actually have much faith in the energy healing field. How do you feel about that, being from a scientific background?
It's an excellent question, Sue.
Thank you.
An excellent question. So I'm going to do my best to answer it. I did a science degree, so I studied physics and chemistry and mathematics and maths, physics and computer science. So I've studied all of the different sciences, and I specialized in zoology. I did biology actually in 3rd year, which is botany and zoology, which is plants and animals. And then in my final year, I specialized in zoology. I am somewhat of an expert in fish biology. That's kind of what I specialize in within my final year.
Right.
So to marry the idea of science, which, as you say, is based on research and fact and being able to demonstrate things. And then how does one then, if you take that type of a mindset and you apply the idea of something which is, I'm going to use the word esoteric, is something that one doesn't always go with the proof of, or how do you prove that that works or doesn't work. Mind you, I'll speak a little bit about meditation a little later on, but maybe I'll introduce meditation at this stage. I practice a meditation called heartfulness, which is a meditation originating in India, and I'm a trainer in that practice. There's been a lot of work that's been done on seeing how the benefits of meditation on the body, the mind, and the spirit, and the energy of a person. So there's loads and loads of research has been done on it to say that, yes, look, if we meditate, if we practice meditation, if we get some downtime and we listen to our bodies, we give our body the opportunity to relax and to re-energize, that we can show that scientifically there are benefits. But in terms of how does one have a conversation with somebody who's of a very scientific nature about something that's a bit different, I find it's actually very easy, and I find that a lot of people are exploring their own health, their own well-being, and there's a lot of information circulating about certain aspects of healing and diet and how we mind ourselves, how we have downtime. There's a lot of information circulating. Lots of people are actually reaching out and wanting to know more. And the more people actually take on that, and the more people look into that, the more I'm going to use the word vibration, which is an energetic word, the more their vibration increases and their vibration rises. And the more people that actually adopt that, and the more that their vibration rises, the more everybody's vibration rises, and therefore the more the people will actually engage more and more and more. So it's kind of a wheel that's starting to turn, and the more it turns, the quicker it turns, and the more the people realize it's turning, then the more the people will say, oh, there's something there that I'd like to know more of. I find myself having fascinating conversations all the time with people who might have said, well, they have no interest in this topic, but I can drop a little question in, very simple little question. And it seems to be the case that lots of people are developing an interest in this area. And the more that people develop interest, the more widespread the knowledge becomes. And the more widespread the knowledge becomes, I think the better for everybody.
I agree. Do you think there's, as we would say, maybe a shift in that awareness happening right now, that people are becoming aware that there is maybe more to this, and just, as you said, like a light switching on, that they think, gosh, there's more to this? I don't know, it's hard to put into words. No,
it's again, that's a really well put question. Is there a shift going on? I would say absolutely. The very fact that we're having this conversation, and we're sharing this conversation on Facebook, and it'll be on YouTube and so on, the very fact we're having this conversation, and it's an open conversation. I mean, this is a conversation about energy and healing and possibility and capability, and human capacity is something that I'm an avid student of. And I get that more people are having challenges, and they're finding themselves in difficulty without really having an answer. And I'm a strong advocate of health and wellness generally, and there is definitely a lot of help that can be had from the mainstream health professionals. But there are things that people are facing, and perhaps they will require more than what's available from a pharmacist or what's available from a surgeon. My own example being, I mean, I'm my own living example of what's possible. And the realization of what's possible and the application of what's possible, it's absolutely fascinating as a field to be involved in. To see the possibility of what can be opened up just by, and your first sentence that you mentioned was that limiting and labeling and stuff like that. if we actually take that, so I'm just going to draw a box here, and that people box themselves in, what does that mean? Well, we put a label around it, or we put a boundary around it, and we say, oh no, I can only, I can't do more than.
Yeah.
But supposing we just take that box, and I had a conversation, I was sharing this with you earlier on, I had a conversation with somebody this morning about living in the dream. So let's say that the box that we've created for ourselves, through whatever reason, we've created a dream that we're in. That's our life, our dream, the dream that we're in. But supposing we could step out of that dream and stop living in that dream, then where are we? And if we come out of the boundary space, the box, we're actually in space. We're actually in infinite space because it's all around us. And it's a topic I'm going to talk more and more about, because as I was having this conversation, the person I was speaking with, who was actually this was on the phone, and he's in the eastern side of the country, but he was describing how he was feeling as we were having this conversation. And at the same time, I'm very empathetic. I would pick up on people's feelings and emotions as they're actually having an experience. So I was, in my own body, I was having an awareness of what he was experiencing. So I could actually help guide him to feeling a little bit constricted in your throat. You've got a bit of something going on in your stomach.
Yes.
And he was saying, yeah, that's exactly what it's. And I was just saying, look, just allow it to be. And to realize that if he can actually step out, because that's the dream. And this is created by his experiences, his emotional challenges he may have had in the past. But if he can actually just realize that that's just a boundary around his being or his awareness, and just get out of that, to come out of that dream, because that's all it is, it's a dream. And if you do that, dream just goes. And then you're in infinite possibility. You're in,
because there's no limits. Then you've removed
absolutely
the limits.
Well, it's just energy. It's just energy. And we're all energy. And if we can accept that that's what we are, we have a physical body and we have an energy body. But our energy body is connected to everyone else's energy body and to all of the energy in the universe.
Which is scientifically proven. It's like there is scientific proof. It's not just our, what we as like, in our field have been taught or believe. It's, there's the resonance that they can pick up on the aura, and it's energy, and we are energy. So it's not like just some airy-fairy theory.
No,
so,
it's as real as you and I sitting here.
And you can feel it.
To have the experience of it and to feel it, that's absolutely amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And even to have the conversation about this idea of taking away the label, and then if we take away the label, then what's there?
How does one do that if they want to start feeling that sense of more freedom? And another thing is, like we had said, well, the old way hasn't been working. We tend to be stuck. People want to find another way. There has to be another way, because the way people are doing it has been a slog. It's a struggle. It's like this cyclical wheel, and it doesn't have to be like that. So people are looking for, there has to be another way. The old way hasn't worked. So I think that's why a lot of people might look at alternative therapies, for example. And then what was I saying there? Oh yeah, how does one begin if they want to drop these labels? Because a lot of people feel so stressed and constricted by these self-limiting beliefs and their energy that they're actually doing to themselves. How would they begin on this journey?
Very, 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 very deep question.
Oh gosh, how to begin? I know, I always go too far.
No, it's totally okay. The first part I get is about acknowledgement, right? So if a person wants to start on that journey, the first part is to acknowledge that's a journey they want to take on. So I think acknowledgement is really important. The second thing is to actually learn how to actually be in one's own body and to have the awareness of one's own body.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing I would be suggesting is to have an awareness of one's own breath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there are numbers of techniques about helping us bring ourselves into our own body,
Mm-hmm.
be aware of our own breath. I'm a massive advocate of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the right time to bring meditation in here.
Yeah, hopefully you do.
So I've been practicing meditation since the late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, though, when I practice meditation and when I'm in the meditation space, and when I found myself in that space, in the initial stages of practicing and learning meditation techniques, I realized that the feeling, the awareness was something very familiar.
Mm.
And something I didn't mention, I started to learn music from a very young age. And I play both the accordion and the fiddle to a very high level. I'd be an All-Ireland title holder.
Oh, right. Gosh.
So
Lovely.
I play to a very high standard. And when I'm playing music, and particularly when I play music with others, so we group together and we have what are called sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting what can happen as a session develops, because the energy, and again I'm talking energy here,
Mm-hmm.
the energy within the music and the musicians, as you start to bounce pieces of music off each other,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like going up the stairs. And people talk about the feeling, the vibe, the crack, these kind of words.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually an energetic piece that goes with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, you talk about a rave and bringing the house down and the roof nearly being lifted, etc., etc., etc. That's part because of the sound. It's part because of the people that are there, but it's mostly because of the energy and the rising vibration from the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do when I play music, and particularly in groups, is I go off somewhere. My mind just goes, and I'm just in the music. I'm in the experience of playing the music. And it's like being in a room, which is an amazing room to be in. Anyone that's listening to this and knows what it's like to play music and to enjoy playing music, to be in the zone, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
But what I discovered when I started to practice and develop my meditation, I discovered I was actually perhaps not in the same room, but certainly the same house. So this place where awareness and feeling and being in the zone, and there's a very, very real sense of one feeling lifted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very, very powerful experience. So sometimes we say playing music, go on, lift it. And what does that mean? You get a little more excited, you get a little, so lift it. But there's actually a sense of it being lifted. And again, when having an energy session, either that I accept or that I give to somebody, there's a definite sense of something lifting. And it's energy. It's energy that's lifting. So what I've realized is that I've been meditating since I was a very small child, because I was very fortunate and lucky to live beside the sea, which again is the marine energy. Then learning to play music, which is music and energy. Working with the sea for a number of years as a marine biologist, which again is marine energy and life and nature.
Yeah.
And then meditation itself. But to me, that whole energy, it's all in the same house. They're perhaps different rooms. Others may describe it differently, but for me, being in that house, it's a house of awareness, it's a house of energy. Yeah. And one of the ways, and you asked how would one start, one is to be aware that it's there, but secondly, to practice and to learn the techniques of meditation. Diet is hugely important. It's massively important. I was having a conversation with one of my kids earlier on, and we were discussing plant-based diets versus meat-based diets. And we we were talking about performance and talking about, my son asked me, is it possible because of advances in science and other things that sports people will be able to play longer at a competitive level?
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that there's a group of cyclists in America who participated in the last Olympics. They were the 4-person cycle team. They cycle an indoor arena.
Oh yeah.
And they were mostly in their 20s, early 20s. But there was one lady who was in her mid to late 30s, and she actually had adopted a plant-based diet. And as someone in her mid to late 30s, she shouldn't have been able to keep up with everybody else. She was the one going fastest.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of her being on the team, they won the gold medal. So diet is very important.
Yeah.
What it can actually do to one's body and how one's body responds physically and energetically.
Yeah,
So,
because you can feel that, because like clean living, clean eating and drinking, you feel so much better, but that's your energy vibration rising.
absolutely. Little example which kind of ties in with meditation. I spent time, I studied, trained in meditation in India and the south of France.
Oh, really?
And we were in India, up in the Himalayas, staying in a meditation center or an ashram, place called Satkal. And it's quite a small retreat center. It sleeps 60, but it's above the tree line. It's up at, I think it's 13,000 feet. So you actually have to get up to it, and it has its own organic garden, and the water is actually a spring. It's actually spring water.
Beautiful.
And the air is so pure, it's incredible. So we were there for about 6 days, and you meditate in the morning at 4 o'clock, you meditate again at 12, and you meditate again in the evening at about 7. You're eating organic food, you're drinking spring water, you're in the most fresh, amazing air. There is absolutely no pollutants. And it's interesting the way a body responds to it. Now I might myself, and yet for the first 2 days, my body went into detox mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all this clearing out of my lungs and from my sinuses, and that's just because of the purity of the air, the energy of meditation, the purity of the food. So all of these things are factors. I felt absolutely amazing after about day 3, and we spent nearly a month in India. We were meditating 3 times a day in different places around India. But the importance of food, how it affects our bodies and how it affects our energy bodies is phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
I'm surprised you came back.
It it was a challenge, I have to say. It was a challenge.
It's discipline. It's discipline. That's one thing when I also like teach people is meditation. It's not about just emptying your mind and sitting to relax. It's about being alert and being awake. And it's focused attention. It is a discipline.
Well, we actually practice what we call constant remembrance, which is part of the process. So the idea being to get to a place where one is in a meditative state on an ongoing basis. So it's not like you just have to practice your 20 minutes or half an hour or an hour's meditation. As that develops and evolves, one gets to a meditative state, which is the state that one is in. Yeah. And we practice what's called constant remembrance to help with that.
Yeah. So kind of like what I would be, or practice is like mindful living. So you tend, the more you practice, it becomes your natural state of being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it exactly.
That's lovely. I want to ask you, how does this blend with your work in, or how is it perceived? Is that maybe the right way of saying, when you have, your work in politics, social, environmental, political, that whole arena. How do you marry those two? Or are they accepted, or do you still see them as being perceived as totally polar to each other?
A really good question. For me personally, I don't see any polarity and stuff. I don't see things as being polar difference, or whatever way that term would
Again,
be.
that's labeling. That's labeling and judging. But that's
Totally.
what society tends to do.
Totally.
Yeah. And what I mean is, how have you been perceived with this in that world?
I suppose as I speak more about this topic, a lot of people are kind of surprised, because a lot of people know me as a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Or a guy who's stood in elections, or a guy who's helped people build businesses, or that kind of practical approach. But the more I speak about this kind of work, the more people realize. I was on a conference call recently where I explained to people, well, I'm an energy healer, and I wasn't quite sure what response I would get from it was a Zoom room. Mm-hmm. And I got these messages back after, sure, we know you're an energy healer. Why do you think it might be so unusual that we know that that's what you do? One of the things that you do. What I focus on, and this is something I'm doing more of, is I focus on the belief that health and wellness and energetic balance is so important that it underlies everything. And if one can get those kind of things right and in balance, then everything else can be built off it.
Yeah.
And it's perhaps a slightly different way to look at how the world works. However, I've seen amazing transformations with people, both physically and in their secular life, if you want, their business life, from taking the approach that, look, they need to look after themselves better, more holistically, and then how that applies to how they do in the rest of their lives. I've been very privileged to be able to help people to actually work on themselves, and then see how that has impacted on the rest of their lives, if you want. And it's hugely satisfying to be able to do that. I was doing some work with some business owners a little while back. I won't give detail, but some business owners who were in a challenging place. And we went through a number of processes together, a lot of it energetic, a lot of it practical. There were actually numbers of sessions where there were tears. And at the end of the day, decisions were made as to how to work on moving the business forward. So there were some practical steps taken. And one of the business owners actually, well, in fact, both business owners have now blossomed in terms of where they're going in their lives. I got a message from one who was actually in Mexico speaking at an international conference at the beginning of the year, which would have been unheard of. And my belief is that the energetic work helped bring that about, because it cleared away blocks. And in clearing away the blocks, it opens up the possibilities. A bit like saying, okay, let's get out of that dream. Let's get out of that dream, and then what's possible. And I'm massively privileged to be able to work with people in that way. I had an interesting experience actually with in the political sphere, where I was able to actually work with some people who are now actually in the European Parliament. I ran for the European Parliament myself. I was actually able to work with some of the people involved on an energetic level while we were going through the experience of standing for election, which is kind of interesting. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah. Do you think, because you have worked extensively in that field of commerce, that they possibly have you've built like there's more of a reputation of trust that, okay, well, we know this guy, his head is screwed on, we can trust him, let's see where he's going with this?
I would say that, yeah, I've a big network of people who I trust and trust me.
Yeah.
And I suppose that helps because it means I can bring something different and I can get a good hearing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a lot of people would say I'm such a calming influence on a group gathering, on a meeting. A lot of people would comment on how much younger I look than what my age would suggest.
Well, we won't ask you what age you are then.
Well, I'm not going to volunteer that, but a lot of people would comment on, you know, how well I seem to be and how fit I seem to be and lots of things like that. And then when we have those conversations, it's because of life that I lead, the lifestyle that I live, different I engage with, and the work that I do with myself and with others. Because as I work energetically with people, I benefit also. That's the real beauty. It's the real beauty of energy work. That as one works with somebody else, one benefits also from it oneself. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
And the thing is, when they pick up on your energy, even though they might not realize it, they think, you know, I want a bit of that. What's that guy got? You know, let's find out a bit more here. Do you find
there is definitely a bit of that goes on?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because somewhere I'm going and I'm developing ideas and plans. The whole lockdown and restriction on travel has given me the opportunity to look at other ways of bringing this kind of work to the world. But because I have a business background and business understanding, as well as the actual experience and the teachings of energy and energetic health, what I wonder is I want to marry the two together and bring that whole work out into the mainstream, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
I did a talk actually in one of the colleges in Galway recently. Well, sorry, just before Christmas, where I was describing a plan that I'm working on to a group of final year business students. And as they heard what I was saying, and we had questions and answers afterwards, and one of them says, "Are you trying to create a new health system?" I said, "No, but I certainly would like to be able to provide access to therapies that anybody can avail of. And if you don't necessarily want to go down the main healthcare route, you don't have to. There's this other possibility there as well, or other possibilities."
Yeah.
So I think that's really, really important. So I'm about developing a number of health centers, I'm going to say it, around the world. We're looking at different countries, and except for flight restrictions, things would be a lot further on. However, I believe that this is something that the world is crying out for, and I'm really looking forward to being able to bring more of that out to people.
Fantastic. I'll talk to you more about that. I'd love to hear more. One question that has popped into my mind just now is you never know what's going to come out of my mouth, Diarmaid. With energy healing, do you feel, okay, I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to see what you say. Do you feel energy healing is something that can be learned? Does everybody have it? Or, well, is it something you need to train to do? Does everybody have it? Or is it a gift?
Okay, my answer to that one is that everybody has that gift. Everybody has that gift.
They just don't know they have it.
Well, sometimes it requires a little bit of perhaps tweaking, a little bit of clearing blocks, perhaps. However, my belief is that everybody has this gift. We're simply opening up ourselves to energy.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to the label.
Yes.
And if we can actually stop living in the dream, whatever that dream is, which we've created through our life experiences and through what people have said to us and what they think we are, or what we think we are, we think we're not. you can't do that, you could do that, why don't you do that, all that. So if we take that and we step out of it, and then we go back and we tear it all up, so we say, no, it's not going to be there anymore.
Yeah.
I believe that everybody has the capability. Everybody. It's just about human potential. It's about
yeah.
experiencing it and stepping into that. It's an infinite space. It's an infinite possibility. There are infinite possibilities. It's just about grabbing it and just experiencing it. And I believe everybody has that capacity. They just need to realize it, acknowledge it.
Realize it. And the higher your vibration is, yeah. So the higher your vibration is, like you said, i.e. eating really like clean living food, being in nature more, all those things raise your vibration. So I know, or I feel, certainly the higher your vibration is, the higher the your awareness of the energy and your potential to access that realm of healing. And
Absolutely.
You were in that space from a young age. So the more one practices, the more one becomes aware, the greater the potential. Totally.
Well put. Yeah. Well put.
Oh, thank you. Just reiterating your thoughts. Tell me, hang on, I've dropped my page here. I had wanted to ask you as well. Oh, heartfulness meditation.
Yes.
How does that differ to other forms of meditation? I know I did go to heartfulness meditation here in Galway. And I've definitely wanted to look more into it. How does it differ?
Well, I'll speak a little bit about heartfulness, and then I'll speak about whether it does or doesn't differ. Heartfulness, as I mentioned, is an Indian practice, and the focus is meditation on the heart, or more specifically on divine light in the heart. And we work with, I'm a trainer in heartfulness, so I conduct meditation groups, and we work with a teacher who's based in India. And what we do is we actually work with him as we conduct meditation. And there is what's called yogic transmission, which comes through as we practice the meditation, as we develop the meditation. So the big thing, I suppose, about heartfulness is the yogic transmission. And it's a very real feeling. It's a very cleansing feeling. It's a very real sensation. And it's very, very powerful. And heartfulness, I'm glad actually you brought me back to heartfulness, because something I want to mention, if I can, I just have to check out a little note here. On the 21st of September is International Day of Peace.
Okay.
And heartfulness meditation is actually looking to bring 40 million people together to meditate for peace on the 21st of September at 9 p.m. local time.
Okay.
And I can give you a web link, which is www.heartfulness.org/Peace Day, PEACEDAY.
Okay. If you WhatsApp that to me, I can add it into the link, into the comments under this video. That would be lovely.
So the intention is to bring 40 million people together at 9 o'clock that morning to meditate for peace. And it's the potential in that of 40 million people meditating at the same time will be massive. Will be absolutely massive.
Yeah, the power in numbers, it's magnitude. Yeah. That's lovely. Thanks for sharing that with us.
No problem. Well, again, just on heartfulness, we have a number of meditation spaces, or ashrams as they're called, in India. And the latest was only opened up in February this year. It's in a place called Kana, and it has a meditation hall that actually can take 100,000 people. And the energy that was created when 100,000 people meditate at the same place, is mind-boggling. It's amazing. So the big difference, I think, between heartfulness and other types of meditation is the yogic transmission.
Okay.
But meditation, there are numbers of different meditation practices. I don't pretend to know them all. But the whole idea is to go into an inner space and to work with one's breath, and in that inner space, to allow that inner space to expand. And as one finds one's own inner space and allows it to expand, then there's all sorts of possibilities that fill into that. It's an amazing, amazing experience. And I mean, the sort of benefits that one can expect. I mentioned earlier, everybody describes me as really, really calm and really, really calming. That's come about because of the amount of meditation that I have done. I'd be well able to run 10 kilometers if I so wished. That's because my breathing is very regulated. I appear a lot younger than I actually am. That's because of the impact of meditation. So the benefits, I did some meditation with a group of engineers from one of the big companies in Galway, and they were looking at something to improve their performance. So we did some meditation and we did a Q&A as well. And a number of them actually have come back afterwards to continue with meditation because they got something from it. But in terms of clarity of mind, in terms of being able to think better, in terms of being calm in the middle of frenzied activity, these are all benefits from meditation. And it's actually quite amazing the impact it can have, and the impact it can have on others. Others describe me as sort of sitting in a meeting. You seem to be able to just pull everyone is talking, and suddenly you're able to pull it all together in one sentence, describe exactly what's been happening for the previous 2 hours. That's because I have clarity in how I think. And that clarity comes from meditation.
And that's something anybody can practice and they can learn.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's about finding that inner space, as you said, of clarity and calm. And I find also a lot of us don't realize that that potential is within us. We're always looking for something outside to fix us or to make things better. But actually the power is within you. You just need to learn how.
Well, if a lot of people
acknowledge that you do, like recognize that you do.
Absolutely. And a lot of people would say it's how one responds to what happens to one. That's where real power is. So how you respond. So what happens. It's in how you respond. That would determine your power. And of course, how you respond depends on what's inside. And if one is calm and one is, there's an example given. The guy who comes downstairs in the morning, he's in a bad mood, and he kicks the cat and he goes out and he spills his cup of coffee on the ground. And he goes, oh, damn it. And next thing he finds his tire, or one of the tires on his car is punctured. And of course, if you're feeling very agitated, you may go and kick the tire and say, well, damn it, or whatever. The tire still has to be changed. So it's how one responds. And if one has had a meditation and one is calm and one goes out and realizes, oh, I've got a puncture, I'll now change the puncture. And one changes the puncture. Where's one's stress level, where one's stress level is going to be at, it'll be fine. Isn't it interesting? I now have a puncture to deal with. Isn't it interesting? As opposed to, oh my God, I'm going to be late for work, etc., etc. The puncture still has to be changed. The tire still has to be changed. So it's how one responds. That's an inner thing, and that's where this whole idea of looking within, that's where that all originates from. Because if one can look within, and if what's inside is calm, then one works from that place. That's a really cool place actually to work from.
It is, because we bring so much stress on ourselves, as you said, that reactivity. How many times potentially throughout the day are we causing ourselves that what can become chronic stress, which is debilitating for your health and your well-being, that we're actually mindlessly and automatically bringing on ourselves without even being aware that we actually have a choice.
You got it. You asked a question as well earlier about what steps might one take. A lot of what we're talking about now is about awareness, and to even have the sense of being in one's body and what one is experiencing inside. What are one's feelings? What's one's awareness of what's going on in one's body? To actually be able to do that and to be able to sit in that. And if there's discomfort, where is that discomfort sitting? Is it in my stomach? Is it in my heart area? Am I feeling constricted in my throat? Do I have an awareness of pain in my head? Where is the stress sitting? And if I can allow the stress or the emotion or the awareness to just be and allow it to move,
Yeah,
then
because it's always moving.
It dissipates.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So
yeah.
amazing.
When you let go of trying to hold on to things so firmly, they come and go by themselves.
Exactly.
Oh, it's lovely.
Exactly.
I'm just going to, do you mind if I just quickly turn on a light here?
That's absolutely fine.
Because I'm really dark.
That's okay.
Okay. There we go. Okay, I'm back. Right. That's fabulous. No, I love what you're saying. And so your work right now, in this area, which I think is also fascinating, is, you know, as you had said, human capacity and tapping into possibilities, and what is possible. Do you want to, have we talked as much as you can on that, or do you want to, is there anything you want to expand on, or give anybody like tips, or if they're like thinking this all sounds so cool, but where do I start? I want a bit of that.
Well, what I will be doing over the next while, I've had a number of people ask me, would I be doing workshops on these types of topics? And that's something I will be doing.
Right.
Where does one start? I think one starts by having some experience of what's possible, right? And that may mean a first connection with energy. That may mean a first experience of meditation. That may mean a first walk in nature. It may mean a number of things. But I think it may mean that one is going to look at what one eats and one is going to change something. It may mean having a session which involves, let's see if we can unblock certain blocks. But I think any of those things will start a process or start a journey.
Yeah.
And that journey then, it opens out like that. And I mean, so there are so many facets in us as human beings. We have a physical body, we have emotions, we have energies, we have, and everything we experience and how we experience it, that develops who we become or who we are. And if we change something in any of those different aspects of ourselves, we can actually become quite different. And what I would be saying to people is explore the possibilities of becoming your absolute best self. Explore those possibilities. And that could mean so many things. And we all have the choice. We actually all have the choice to have those experiences. Do we want to improve how we are physically or physical health? We want to improve how we are in terms of being calm or in terms of being in control of our minds, of our bodies. Do we want to explore the possibility of possibility? Do we want to explore the possibility of human capacity and see what it actually is, see what it's like? It's absolutely fascinating. It's fascinating.
As like we were saying earlier ourselves, to do that, you need to be able to give yourself space. We're saying this, the world it's so busy and we are bombarded 24/7 these days, that unless we reclaim a bit of control and take that space, what you're talking about isn't going to get in. It's not going to reach many people if they are continually absorbed by the noise and the distraction.
The really important, but you've hit the nail on the head there. Space and quietness are really important, particularly if one is starting on this journey. Now, interestingly, the further on the journey one goes, the less important the quietness actually is. And I'll give an example. I did some work with a guy called Wally Minto a number of years ago. Wally's sadly passed away a couple of years back. But Wally's goal in life was to teach the world to heart hug. So he would always meet heart to heart with somebody when they hug. So you go in left to left side, and you exchange heart energy, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. I know that there are lots of people who say we shouldn't be hugging each other these days, but a heart hug is a beautiful, beautiful thing to do with somebody else. But Wally was one of the first people to actually teach me meditation techniques. This is back in the mid-90s. And Wally was so evolved in his meditation practice. He practiced lots of different places just to see how he would fare out. And he would go into the busiest railway station in America, and would go into the busiest and he would sit down, and he had himself so well trained that he would be able to get into meditative state just like that. But that's because he had practiced and practiced and practiced.
Yeah.
And so
that's the thing. You can learn all these techniques in like a monastery or like in the Himalayas where you were, but realistically, most of us live in a very busy world. So it's about accessing, learning. Anyone can learn to access that space within the busy world.
Absolutely.
And that is something that one can learn. I had read about a guy who went, again, similar to the Himalayas or whatever, and he was learning to meditate, but he was really upset because there was construction going on in the building next door. And the monk, of course, told him, well, you know, that's what you got to learn, is to find the peace within when there is the chaos around you. You know, it's actually, it's interesting.
Just on that, we had there was a festival actually last summer in Galway, in Salt Hill. You just reminded me. And we had a tent, actually, a marquee. Somebody ringing here. We actually had a marquee there for meditation, and there was a big, big tent at the top of the festival, and we had a big meditation on one particular morning. Now, I actually took the meditation and I conducted it, but as the meditation was happening, there was all this machinery actually outside the marquee. So there were diggers, and they were actually cleaning out portaloos, because this was quite a big festival. But all this activity was going on. There was a lot of cleaning going on, right? And of course, the cleaning was part of the whole process. Now, it didn't make it easy for people who were starting a meditation. However, this was just, there was all this activity going on, as the monk mentioned that you were speaking about. You got to learn. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was at that festival.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm just up the road, so I went to that. Yeah, so I saw where you were. Yeah, and tell me something else. Can we touch very briefly? I know you've given me so much of your time, and I'm really grateful. Two things I just quickly like to touch on, as well as one, how all of this work and say meditation can support people with their mental health. We know is a massive thing at the moment and a great challenge for many people. That's one thing I'd like to ask your opinion. And secondly, if you can let us know, or even if you want to, how people can contact you, and if there's upcoming workshops, etc., where could they get that information? Because I'd love to join. I'm definitely coming.
Well, the first one in terms of meditation and mental health, you're right. A lot of people are experiencing stress in their lives on all sorts of levels, and it ain't easy for a lot of people at the moment. And I'm acknowledging that. I mean, it's challenging times for a lot of people. So what I would suggest is that in all of that, we still have opportunity to learn things that can help us be the best version of who we are. And meditation is a huge, huge, huge part of that. It allows one to experience things from a place that, for me, is always, but that doesn't mean to say I don't suffer stress, but I've trained myself and I've experienced enough to be able to say, okay, I can process what's going on. So if something occurs, something that's changed, something that's different, I'm able to take it on, I'm able to absorb it, and I'm able to work with it, as opposed to losing sleep or having anxiety or things like that. And in terms of mental health, thanks for asking that question. It's a subject that's very close to my own heart. It's that I'm somewhat expert in for personal reasons. One of my family members actually deals with ongoing anxiety issues. And being able to be present for that and with that, because of my own experience with meditation and my own experience with working with myself, means I can be very calming and very calm. And that has a positive effect on someone else who's having anxiety and so on. So meditation for me is one of the best things I've ever discovered in life. It adds so many layers and so much richness to so many other things. I recommend it highly for anybody. So how is that?
Are you training people? You train in heartfulness meditation. Are you currently training, or are you training online, or is that an option if anybody wants to go that route, or even to partake in one of your classes?
Well, with heartfulness, there are a number of us are trainers, and we conduct meditation. It's mainly online. And we also do it what's called virtually. So what I'll do is I'll give you some details that if you want to circulate, that would be fantastic. I will be running workshops in energies and other topics like that over the next number of months. So I'm actually building courses as we speak. And I'm right in the middle of building a new website, which will be Diarmaid Mulcahy.
Yeah, because I couldn't access your website, so I wanted to ask you about that.
It's actually being built at the moment.
Okay.
So it's under construction, as they say.
Right.
It'll take about a month for it to be fully functional. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to get in touch with me for healing work or anything else, I can give you my telephone number and we can work from there.
Yeah, and you have your Facebook page, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're on Instagram. Personally.
Indeed.
Or just personally, or
I'm on LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn as well. Yeah. No, that's great. That's awesome. What else did I want to? Can I see if anybody has any question for you?
Absolutely.
No, Denise says thank you, Diarmaid. She's listening with her sister. Oh, and then I can't read the rest, but she's enjoyed. Maybe other people will watch back and have questions, but they can always put them in the comments and we can tag you in it. And I will put links for your website when it's ready and anything else you'll be holding. I'd be very interested to know more about the centers around the world that you're involved in, and any work within mental health and how meditation, anything. I'd love to know more. So
we will definitely stay in touch.
Watch this space. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Are you finding it very limiting right now, or are you managing all of these plans in the current situation?
The restriction on travel is a little bit of a difficulty, but that's okay. I'm very lucky in having people in other parts of the world that I'm working with. So we're putting something together in British Columbia, actually in Canada. And there's a conversation going on around the United Arab Emirates as well, which will be quite interesting. what we're looking at doing is we're looking at bringing a lot of marine energy, working with particularly marine mammals as part of a healing journey. So that's going to be quite interesting. It's bringing sort of the energy of the sea and the healing of the sea to people, and how to do that. So we're working out the mechanics of how that's going to happen. And so there are certain places around the world where you have access to that kind of nature and wildlife. So to be able to bring people to those places and give them that experience. So it's going to be quite interesting. It's pretty exciting. It's exciting.
Very exciting. You can see how your studies now in zoology, it all marries together, you know, your journey.
Well, it's what I believe is that anybody has their journey, and if one can actually pick out the bits of the journey that are sort of, and the only way we can see the journey is when we look back and say, oh, I did that, or I was there, or whatever.
Yeah.
But if one can all bring all those together, that can demonstrate the road ahead, I believe. So
it's like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Take time to reflect, and then you see how the puzzle pieces fit together for what's ahead.
You have it.
Oh, lovely. Gosh, well, it's been really interesting chatting to you. I think I could anyway chat for hours, but we'll definitely connect again. Is there anything else you want to tell us before I actually let you go?
What I'd love to share with people is be open to the possibilities of possibility. Be open to the possibility that we are infinite. Be open to the idea that we have infinite capacity. As beings, we have infinite capacity. And be open to exploring that and play with it. It's great fun. So that would be what I would offer to people. Just get out there and enjoy the idea of human capacity and the fact that we're infinite beings. It's great fun.
Yeah. Lovely. Well, I'm going to explore that space a lot more. Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. And do remember to send me your links.
I will, of course.
And people can find you on LinkedIn and Facebook, and your website. We'll be keeping a keen eye out for when all those events come up.
Thank you so much, Sue. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. Okay. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Up to